Extinct animals have always fascinated us, and for scientists, the obsession goes even further, with frozen mammoths preserved in Siberian ice, or the DNA of vanished species locked in fossils. Some dream of bringing them back to life, but in the most remote corners of our planet.
We are diving deep into the 7 real-life animals scientists are actually trying to bring back from extinction.
Scientists have officially brought back the dire wolf. Yes, the ancient, legendary predator made famous by Game of Thrones is no longer just fantasy or fossil. It's alive. Well, kind of. And it's the beginning of something way bigger.
6. Giant moa. Just a few centuries ago, an enormous bird roamed the forests and plains of New Zealand. The giant moa. Females could exceed 3 meters in height and weigh more than 200 kilograms. Lacking functional wings, it moved on long, powerful legs and grazed on tall vegetation thanks to its slender neck. With no natural predators, it reigned undisturbed until the arrival of humans. The first Maori, around the 13th century, hunted it intensively for its meat and feathers, while the destruction of its habitat further reduced its chances of survival. In less than 2 centuries, it had vanished from known areas. Yet Maori stories and some modern testimonies speak of large brown birds spotted in remote valleys. The wildest and most inaccessible regions of New Zealand might still shelter the silent shadow of this vanished colossus.
Number 5. The vanished ocean giant, Steller's sea cow. If you thought manatees were big, meet the Steller's sea cow, the gentlest 30-foot-long, 10-ton ocean grazer you've never heard of. First discovered in 1741 by the German naturalist Georg Wilhelm Steller, this sea cow lived in the frigid waters around the Commander Islands, near Alaska. It had thick brown skin like bark, no teeth, just rough plates for chewing kelp, and it spent its days floating peacefully in shallow water with its family, feeding in slow, sweeping movements. Steller described them as affectionate, intelligent, and curious. One account says they would even nuzzle up to wounded members of their herd and try to keep them afloat. But within just 27 years of their discovery, humans hunted every last one of them to extinction. Why? Because they were slow, they couldn't dive, and they were packed with insulating blubber, making them perfect targets for food, oil, and leather. Now, scientists want to bring them back, not just because they were beautiful creatures, but because of what happened to the ecosystem after they disappeared.
The Moeritherium. Around 37 million years ago, long before the appearance of modern elephants, lived the Moeritherium. Smaller than a hippopotamus, it measured about 3 meters in length and weighed around 300 kilos. Its stocky body, short legs, and elongated head with a small prehensile snout gave it a strange appearance, somewhere between a primitive elephant and an amphibious mammal. It spent much of its time in the swamps and rivers of North Africa, feeding on aquatic plants. It is thought to be one of the earliest relatives of elephants, but also of manatees and dugongs. Officially extinct for millions of years, it still features in certain African stories.
3. The icon of extinction, the dodo, the poster child for extinction. But here's the thing. Everything we thought we knew about the dodo, probably wrong. First off, it wasn't fat and dumb. That's colonial PR. Early Dutch sailors on the island of Mauritius described the dodo as easy to catch, but that's only because the dodo had no natural predators and had never seen humans before. It evolved in total isolation. Why would it fear something it didn't know existed? And the fat thing. It turns out dodos were probably leaner and more agile than the exaggerated drawings suggest, especially in the wild. The goofy, clumsy image we know today came from overfed captive birds drawn by bored European artists. The dodo's real story is tragic. Within 80 years of its discovery, it was wiped out. Not just by humans, but by the rats, pigs, and monkeys that settlers brought with them. These invasive animals ate dodo eggs, which were laid on the ground and had no defenses. Now, scientists are rewriting the dodo's ending. Researchers at Colossal Biosciences and the University of California, Santa Cruz have sequenced its genome using centuries-old DNA fragments. They're working with the Nicobar pigeon, the dodo's closest living relative, to genetically modify embryos that could hatch in just a few years. The goal? To bring them back by 2028 and release them into protected habitats on Mauritius. But here's the real kicker. Bringing back the dodo could help save other species. The dodo used to spread the seeds of rare trees like the tambalacock, which nearly went extinct without it. Reintroducing dodos could revive these ancient relationships, kind of like reuniting nature's lost soulmates. So no, the dodo wasn't dumb, but maybe we were, and now we have a shot at redemption.
2. The thylacine. Also known as the Tasmanian tiger, the thylacine was a large, carnivorous marsupial from Australia and Tasmania. It looked like a slender dog, but bore dark stripes across its back, reminiscent of a tiger. Nocturnal and elusive, it hunted kangaroos, wallabies, and small birds. The arrival of European settlers in the 19th century proved fatal. Considered a threat to livestock, it was hunted relentlessly. Government bounties, combined with habitat loss and disease, led to its rapid decline. The last known specimen died at Hobart Zoo in 1936.
Number 1. The Ice Age icon. The woolly mammoth is the crown jewel of de-extinction. These giants ruled the Ice Age tundra, from Siberia to North America, for hundreds of thousands of years, standing up to 13 feet tall and weighing as much as 6 tons. Mammoths were armored against the cold with long, shaggy fur, a thick layer of fat, and curved tusks that could shovel snow in search of grass. They disappeared about 4,000 years ago. Not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. In fact, there were still small mammoth populations alive on isolated islands after the pyramids were built. So how do you bring back a creature like this? Well, you don't clone it straight up. The DNA is too degraded. Instead, scientists are editing the genes of its closest living relative, the Asian elephant. Using CRISPR gene editing tech, they're inserting cold-adapted mammoth genes into elephant embryos. We're talking genes for hair growth, subcutaneous fat, hemoglobin for cold tolerance, even skull shape and tusk curvature. The result? A hybrid. Not a perfect copy, but a genetically engineered animal that walks like, looks like, and survives like a mammoth.